Panentheism, not to be confused with pantheism. Definition of panentheism: God has both a material and an immaterial component. His material component, or body, is the world. His immaterial component is the world soul permeating all matter. Sounds kind of like Star Wars, doesn't it? This view is complete in that it allows for both material and immaterial reality. I am thus comfortable with a perfect score on this question, the first worldview question, +1. There is no immediately obvious contradiction in this view. Still, I don't think it totally passes the mustard. God is in some sense dependent upon the world. Reason compels us, or at least me, to believe that God transcends the world. At least that is a respectable view which many have held to over the years, that God is transcendent. Also, a good case can be made from physics that the world began to exist. This would make God not eternal, which I have some problems with denying that God is eternal. God seems to have to be eternal to qualify fully as being God. This would make God not eternal, which, as I said, I have some problems with. I think some weight ought to be given to these suggestions that God, if he exists, is outside of space and time. For more details on why I make these suggestions, you can watch my earlier videos on the cosmological argument and God's attributes. Also, it may be the case that panentheism is close enough to pantheism to be self-inconsistent as well. As I said in the last video, Eastern religions like pantheism, or Eastern worldview, the Eastern worldview of pantheism tends to be self-inconsistent, to be not consistent. So if panentheism is close enough to just straight pantheism, then it would be self-contradictory as well. Keeping as much of my bias out of the picture, I'll give an answer of plus 0.45 to that question. I think our third question is where this view shows its real weakness. How is panentheism unlivable? The problem of evil. For it seems that evil really is a real problem, even for God, on the view of panentheism. Evil is intimately tied to the world in which we live, and God, on the panentheistic view, is intimately tied to the world. It seems that God is not able to rise above the fallen world since he is essentially identical to it. Also, this apparently finite God, so far as I am aware, has not done anything to gain atonement for fallen man. We have sinned. We have no way to get rid of our personal evil on our own. If God has not provided a way of escape, then we are of all men most miserable. -1. And the fourth question? So far as I am aware, there are no aspects of the world which are denied by the panentheist, with one possible exception. Namely, panentheism denies a transcendent reality. We have some reason for supposing the deity is like that, if there is a deity. Would he really be God if he is not transcendent? Also, we may appeal again to the cosmological argument. So for the final question, plus 0.45. I'll throw a few points in for good measure, leaving the total strength of panentheism as +1. Not bad. The first positive ranking worldview so far, and we're over halfway done. Deism is the next view that we're going to look at. Definition of deism: God created / designed the world to begin with. God created / designed the world to begin with, but has not intervened in a miraculous way after the initial creation event. The real problem with deism, in my opinion, is that it denies the miraculous. Why does it reject the miraculous? It seems that in practice there are three main reasons. First reason, miracles were perceived to be violations of the laws of nature and hence impossible. But the laws of nature are only a description of how nature normally behaves. Miracles are furthermore supernatural events. In other words, God is supervening into the normally closed system of the world. So of course, if more cause is added from the outside, more effect shall be present on the inside of the world. So of course, Yeah, I read that part. Finally, if God can create everything from nothing, then there is no reason why he could not then perform lesser miracles like parting the Red Sea. You show me a man who believes God created the entire universe out of nothing, and I'll show you a man who believes miracles are possible. The second reason, the really good miracles are to be found in the pages of the Bible. Yet the Enlightenment seriously undermines the historical credibility of the Bible. Two things here in response. Later historical investigation corroborated the Bible. As I've dealt with this elsewhere, I won't rehash it here. Next, much of the biblical scholarship during the Enlightenment was overly governed by unproven and questionable assumptions, so they were not letting legitimate historical data speak for itself in some cases. As I said at the beginning of this series, we cannot be totally unbiased. However, we should try to come as close to being totally unbiased as is possible. One example we already noted, there was an a priori assumption that miracles don't happen. So when they studied the Bible and reached the conclusion that the miracle accounts aren't actually true, we should not be surprised. And the third reason, deists tend to think a good case can be made for the existence of God as a creator/designer, but that the additional step to Christianity is not warranted. While it is true that the case for Christianity, as opposed to just believing in God, is a different kind of case from the case for mere theism, by normal historical canons, the case for Christianity in particular is very strong. I have dealt with this elsewhere, so shall leave that topic for now. Suffice it to say now that if one is a deist, one is practically a theist anyways, and some deists actually are theists. The difference between deist with a D and theist with a TH is almost not that important. The ranking for deism will thus be almost that for theism. It shall be a little bit less because it denies even the possibility of miracles, at least some strands of deism would, and it denies the actuality of miracles. And we do have some reason to believe there were miracles. The Bible is generally reliable history and records miracle accounts, for example. Okay, so next we will look at theism with a TH. Thank you.